Have you ever wondered why people's energy shifts the second you enter the room? Why their laughter suddenly falters, their words stumble, and their eyes betray a nervous awareness when you're near? Have you noticed how silence falls not because of peace, but because of the weight of your very presence? Chosen one. This is no coincidence. God has placed something on you that cannot be explained away by logic. He didn't just walk you through storms, He carried you when your strength was gone. He didn't just deliver you from enemies, He turned their weapons into stepping stones for your elevation. He has crowned you with authority, sharpened your discernment, and clothed you with a presence that unsettles the very atmosphere. And now, you are no longer ordinary. Your footsteps echo with divine purpose. Your presence forces truth to surface, whether people are ready for it or not. You don't have to speak to shift the atmosphere, you are the shift. That is why they better be careful with you. To mishandle you is to mishandle the assignment God Himself has wrapped in your soul. So let me pause to honor you. Thank you, truly, for being part of this mission. To everyone who's been standing with me, whether through your likes, your shares, your comments, or even through your generous support with super thanks, I see you, and I appreciate you more than words can say. Together, we're building not just a community but a movement, a shield of truth that no darkness can silence. If you feel this word piercing into your spirit right now, I want you to drop 777 in the comments as a declaration that you know your presence carries heavenly weight. Because from this moment forward, you are not just walking through life, you are walking as a living reminder that God's hand is on you. And here's where it gets even deeper. What they never wanted to admit is about to be revealed. In the next moments, I'm going to show you exactly why being near you is a privilege they cannot afford to take lightly. Stay with me. Chosen one, the truth you're about to hear will explain everything they tried so hard to keep hidden. God's chosen ones. They better be careful with you. Your presence is not ordinary. Chosen one. Your presence does not walk into a room. It detonates like a hidden earthquake beneath the surface, sending shockwaves through the air before a single word leaves your lips. People feel it in their bones, though they rarely confess it. They underestimated not your appearance, but the silence that surrounds you like an armor forged in divine fire. The greatest miscalculation your enemies ever made was believing you were ordinary, a background shadow to be dismissed or silenced. But the instant you crossed the threshold, reality shifted. Their bodies testified before their mouths could compose the lie. The atmosphere grew heavier. Lungs fought for breath, and the counterfeit confidence they clung to cracked like brittle glass. Was this imagination? No. It was the aftershock of a presence set apart by God Himself. Scripture affirms this mystery. For the Word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It penetrates even to dividing soul and spirit, joints and marrow. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart. Hebrews 4:12. Your very presence, chosen one, becomes that living word. You are not the echo of someone else's spirit. You are the origin point, the spark from which alignment begins. When you move, rooms reconfigure themselves, postures shift, tone is lower, and words become weighed as if a silent tribunal had entered. And here lies the raw truth. Many despise you for it, not because you harmed them, but because your very existence proves they are not as untouchable as they pretend. You are, in essence, the uninvited audit of their soul. Each time you arrive, their lies lose currency, their masks lose adhesion. Have I now become your enemy by telling you the truth? Galatians 4:16. Why do their faces twist, or their voices rise sharp the moment you appear? Though you remain silent, because your energy is the mirror of their hidden wounds, their envy, their unconfessed sins. The Italian painter Caravaggio once said through his art that light does not merely reveal, it interrogates. In the same way, your presence becomes that divine chiaroscuro, the holy light that lays bare the shadows. Some cling to you like a drowning soul grips a lifeline, while others recoil as though your nearness itself were judgment. But either way, they cannot erase you. Like fingerprints on glass, you remain imprinted in their memory. Many mocked your silence, assuming power had to be loud, boastful, or decorated with theatrics. They were like King Saul, who once believed armor and outward stature equaled victory, until David arrived with nothing but a sling and the presence of God. The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. They never understood the authority that emanates from your quietness. You do not announce yourself, your aura does it for you. Here is a piercing question. Why do sensitive souls feel the tremor of your spirit before you utter a syllable, while the jealous scramble to dismiss it? Deep down, they know your presence is not decoration, it is disruption. You don't simply light up a room, you overturn its balance and expose its false supports. That is why they fear you, not because you threaten them, but because your frequency tests every soul who comes near. Some fall into hushed silence, others turn defensive, loud, almost panicked. Their reaction has little to do with who you are, but everything to do with what they must confront within themselves. Chosen one. This is why they must tread carefully around you. To be near you is never casual. It is not background noise. It is trial by fire. And those who mishandle that sacred energy discover that the universe, God's own design, does not pardon disrespect. Friendships fracture. Opportunities vanish. Masks collapse. All the while, they blame you for the exposure that was already written in their conscience. Perhaps you have whispered in prayer, "Why can't I just blend in? Why must my peace feel like a threat to others?" The answer is carved into your very design. You were not built to blend. You were set apart, refined by everything you endured until your very spirit became undeniable. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. You cannot disappear because the atmosphere itself bends around you. When you walk in, conversations falter, noise collapse, and the naked truth sits trembling in the corner. Critics call you too intense or hard to read. But what they really fear is that your very being denies them room to lie to themselves. Your energy, chosen one, is not ego. It is survival transfigured into authority. It is power without noise, fire without smoke. It elevates or it exposes. There is no middle ground. That is why people cling to you or attack you, respect you or resent you. And when they whisper or squirm in your presence, know this: those reactions are evidence of what you carry. Your presence, chosen one, is dangerous to the careless. It is the kind of holy fire that either heals or burns, depending on how it is handled. As the psalmist wrote, "For the Lord your God is a consuming fire, a jealous God." Deuteronomy 4:24. And as the hymn Dies Irae once thundered through medieval cathedrals. Day of wrath. That day will dissolve the world in ashes. Your arrival brings miniature judgments that dissolve falsehoods before truth. Ceres. Chosen one, do not shrink, do not dilute, and do not apologize. You are not ordinary, and you never will be. If they mishandle your presence, it is not your loss, it is theirs. Because being near you is not entitlement, it is privilege, and those who take it lightly will always pay the price. Chosen one, your life is living proof that real power cannot be manufactured, purchased, or staged. They declared you finished, counted you out, and placed you in the shadows, but here you are, the walking receipt that nothing designed by God can be broken. Your very existence unsettles people because you are the contradiction to their entire system of beliefs about strength, authority, and survival. They convince themselves that power is stitched together from money, titles, alliances, or staged popularity. But then you arrive scarred, tested, underestimated, and still stand taller than ever. That is when their illusions collapse, because you represent the one thing they fear most, authenticity that endures fire. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers. They shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned. Isaiah 43:2. Ask yourself this: why does your presence make the self-assured so uneasy, even when you haven't spoken a word? Because you exist as a contradiction to their fragile world of pretense. Their castles are built on sand, appearing tall until the inevitable storm reveals their weakness. And here is the piercing truth: you are the house built upon rock. Storms did not destroy you, they built you. The rain came down, the streams rose, and the winds blew and beat against that house, yet it did not fall, because it had its foundation on the rock. Matthew 7:25. They relied on numbers, applause, and stage lights, but you relied on endurance. That is why some watch you in awe, while others glare with silent rage. Nature itself testifies of this principle. The sequoia tree, towering for thousands of years, it does not grow tall by avoiding fire. Its very seeds are released only when flames surround it. In the same way, what others thought would consume you, instead released the hidden greatness within you. You are proof that what was meant to bury you became your soil, and what was designed to crush you became your crown. Your enemies are haunted by this fact. You are evidence that resilience multiplies under pressure. You reveal that survival is not reserved for the loud, the manipulative, or the celebrated. Survival belongs to those aligned with truth. Isn't this why some people look nervous in your presence? As if their shortcuts and compromises suddenly became visible. Your scars remind them of what they tried to escape. Your silence convicts them, and your peace becomes their punishment. As Paul declared, we are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4:8-9. History, too, leaves its warnings. Take the infamous figure of Charles Ponzi, whose name gave rise to the term Ponzi scheme. He built his empire on deception, convincing thousands that wealth could be created without substance. But when truth arrived, his empire collapsed overnight, leaving ruin in its place. This is the fate of all who attempt to fake power they may shine for a moment. But exposure always comes, and their downfall becomes a cautionary tale. Your life is the evidence. Chosen one. Imagine a courtroom where the guilty are smiling, believing they've escaped judgment until a piece of undeniable evidence is presented. That evidence is you. Your scars are the witnesses, your resilience the testimony, and your very survival the verdict. No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. Isaiah 54:17. You do not need to argue, because your very presence dismantles their illusions without a word. Why do people imitate your voice, your ideas, your style, and then act as if it was theirs? Why do they compete with you when you're not even in the race? It is because they cannot replicate what you carry. They can copy the shell, but not the core. They can rehearse the performance, but never embody the presence. You are the diamond, not the glass. Diamonds are formed by pressure so immense most could never endure it. Glass shatters under the same strike that polishes a diamond. This is why they resent you. You remind them they are breakable while you are not. And here lies another question. Why do they secretly hope for your downfall? Because your resilience mocks their fragility. Every morning you rise is a silent verdict against their excuses. Every time you choose peace over vengeance, you declare that they do not control you. Every silent victory you win turns their counterfeit crowns into rust. They wanted you to be broken, but every attempt to bury you only became fertilizer for your destiny. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118:22. Chosen one. Never downplay this truth. Your survival is not simply endurance, it is your crown. Your scars are not blemishes, they are sacred inscriptions of strength. People watch not because you seek the spotlight, but because you cannot be hidden. And here's the irony, they tried to put out your fire, only to discover that their efforts became the wind that made it burn brighter. That is why they must be careful with you. Mishandling you is not simply rude, it is dangerous. Dangerous not because you wield threats, but because truth is always lethal to lies. Your existence alone proves that power cannot be fabricated. You are living contradiction, the undoing of false power structures, the exposure they cannot escape. And as Handel's Messiah resounds, and he shall reign forever and ever, you, chosen one, carry the echo of that eternal reign in your endurance. So, rise. Do not apologize for being evidence. Do not shrink for the comfort of those addicted to illusions. You were never built to be ordinary. You were sent to be proof. Proof that real power survives the fire. Proof that truth outlasts deception. Proof that your presence is privilege. And privilege, mishandled, always demands a price. Chosen one. Access to you was never casual. It was permission written in the architecture of heaven itself. Too many mistook your presence for coincidence, like bumping into someone on the street, when in reality, it was an assignment. The universe does not scatter you like confetti at a parade, it places you with precision. The way an architect sets the keystone in an arch. Without the keystone, the structure collapses. Without you, their alignment falters. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Psalm 37:23. Haven't you felt the difference between those who enter your life for love and those who enter only to feed off your clarity? Some appeared calm, but in truth they came to siphon your light. When that light grew too intense, their shadows screamed. Why does your presence trigger this sharp divide? Because being near you is never neutral, it's a test of character. And most, when given proximity, to fail it. People call you distant, cold, detached. But are you? Or are you simply disciplined after walking through lessons that burned like fire? You learned long ago that letting the wrong person too close doesn't just drain your energy, it distorts your peace, bends your inner frequency, pulls your soul out of tune. Do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good character. 1 Corinthians 15:33. Your carefulness unsettles those who confuse discipline with rejection. Consider this. Why do so many fumble when they are seated at your table? Why do they mock, disrespect, or attempt manipulation, only to drown later in regret because they mistook access for ownership? They thought they were entitled to you, when in truth, proximity to you was a privilege that exposed who they truly were. Losing access to you was not just losing a person, it was losing the mirror that revealed their hidden cracks. Here is where science lends its metaphor. In physics, resonance occurs when one frequency amplifies another, but misalignment brings dissonance, producing chaos instead of harmony. That is what happens when someone unprepared steps into your orbit. Your energy resonates at a rare frequency, and instead of rising to meet it, their own fractures echo back louder. Can two walk together, except they be agreed? Amos 3:3. I think of a woman named Clara, a quiet baker in a small mountain town. She once told her neighbors, "I stopped giving my bread to those who only wanted crumbs to complain about. I saved the full loaf for the ones who came with gratitude." Her wisdom, though simple, mirrors your truth. Access is sacred. Not everyone deserves to share the table. Imagine handing someone a priceless manuscript, handwritten over centuries. They could protect it, study it, treasure it, or toss it into the fire as if it were scrap. Which choice do you think most people made with you? That's why they still suffer the consequences of mishandling you. They didn't just lose a friend or acquaintance, they lost clarity, blessing, alignment. Their loss became like unpaid debt, haunting them. Do not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. If you do, they may trample them under their feet and turn and tear you to pieces. Matthew 7:6. And here is the irony. Your presence never begged to be seen. It demanded recognition, silently but unmistakably. That's why you no longer chase, no longer argue, no longer justify. Your very energy speaks louder than explanations. Your boundaries are not walls of pride, but gates of discernment. The right ones feel at home immediately, while the wrong ones stumble, resist, and eventually exit. Haven't you noticed how those who lost you rarely recover from it? History whispers the same warning. The architect who mishandles a foundation stone cannot blame the earth when his tower falls. The fault was never the rock, it was his arrogance. In the same way, those who mishandled you discovered too late that access to your life was not a casual invitation. It was holy ground. Take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy ground. Exodus 3-5. So rise, chosen one. Never apologize for guarding the gates of your life. Access to you is not entitlement. It is permission, and those who lost it, whether they admit it or not, know they lost something sacred the moment the door closed. You are not cold, you are careful. You are not arrogant, you are aligned. And your alignment is the standard. Chosen one. Silence in your life is not weakness, it is an earthquake they cannot predict. a thunder without sound, a force without warning. While others brag endlessly about power, you breathe it with every step. Your silence is not emptiness, it is density. Weight, the unseen gravity that tilts entire atmospheres when you enter a room. In quietness and trust is your strength. Isaiah 30-15. Have you ever wondered why conversations stumble? Why eyes dart nervously? Why voices that were loud just a moment ago suddenly crack and falter when you arrive? It is not imagination, it is evidence that your energy speaks before your mouth ever opens. And the most unsettling part, they know it's not something they can copy. Because silence like yours is birthed from alignment, not performance. Imagine this. Two individuals enter the same space. One raises their voice, flaunts titles, flashes credentials, and fights for the spotlight. The other, you remain silent. Yet the room itself bends around your aura. Who leaves the lasting imprint? Who do they remember long after the noise fades? That is the difference between noise and frequency. And you, chosen one, are frequency and alignment so profound that your very stillness becomes a sermon. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46-10. True power does not need a microphone, because its vibration resonates beyond words. Your silence is a cathedral, and those inside it feel both awe and terror. Your enemies despise this because they have built their entire identity on performance. Their existence is a stage act, manipulation, ego, deception, dressed up as confidence. Yet when they stand near you, authenticity pulls the mask from their face without mercy. Why does their pride shatter so quickly? Because truth unmasks the counterfeit. And your silence is the courtroom where every fraud is tried. They might deny it with their mouths, but their bodies betray them, the tightening of their shoulders, the avoidance of your eyes, the restless shifting in their seats. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. The 20th century conductor Herbert von Karajan once remarked, "The pauses between the notes that is where the music lives." This is your power, the pause, the unspoken, the invisible resonance that commands the entire symphony of a room. You do not need to shout, because your silence is already music, an echo of divine composition. And in that music lies judgment and mercy all at once. Have you noticed how some people lean in closer when you are quiet? Desperate to catch what you're not saying. That hunger reveals the truth. Your silence teaches more than their noise ever could. But here is the tormenting question. Why do some obsess over you? Monitoring your movements, competing with you in battles you never entered, because your silence terrifies them. It reminds them that true weight cannot be imitated without scars, without sacrifice, without truth. Their noise, their theatrics, their performances, all reduced to paper in the presence of your fire. And who survives when paper meets flame? For our God is a consuming fire. Hebrews 12:29. You are that consuming reminder. They are reminded that what you carry is not cheap, not borrowed, not manufactured. It is earned through every trial you endured. Some label you misunderstood, claiming your quietness is weakness. But you are not misunderstood because you are quiet. You are misunderstood because you carry a weight that language itself cannot contain. In psychology, this is called unconscious influence, power exerted without effort, authority carried without intention. Your silence presses on them, like atmospheric pressure at great altitude, unseen, yet undeniable. Do you see now why they can't explain why their chest tightens, why their confidence fractures when you say nothing at all? They sense that your silence is not emptiness but judgment, not absence but presence, not weakness but the very proof of strength. I am reminded of Sophia, a seamstress from a coastal village, who said, "The loudest part of my life was when I learned to say nothing. That was when people finally saw who I was." Her wisdom reflects your truth. Silence, chosen one, is not the absence of voice, it is the amplification of presence. When you choose silence, you strip away the illusions others hide behind, and what remains is undeniable truth. And those who once thought they owned the stage discover quickly that the stage was never theirs to begin with. It bowed to you without a word. Enemies feel burned because they expected power to announce itself with trumpets. Yet your silence has always been the stage they can never earn. It doesn't beg for applause, it commands respect. That is why some fear you, others worship you, and none can ignore you. As the hymn Agnus Dei swells with the words, "Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world, grant us peace." Your silence carries that same paradoxical peace, soft enough to soothe, strong enough to shatter, and in this peace, those unprepared to face themselves feel exposed, while those aligned with truth find rest. So here is the revelation. You do not speak power, you embody it, and without effort, without strategy, without theatrics, you expose them all. Chosen one, rise in that truth. Do not apologize for your silence. Do not explain the weight you carry. In a world addicted to noise, you are the thunder they cannot silence, the stage they cannot occupy, the proof they cannot erase. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. And from this day forward, let your silence remain the crown on your head, a crown no hand can steal, and a power no enemy can counterfeit. Chosen one, how many times have you heard them whisper that you are too much, too intense, or too intimidating? They use the word as a weapon because they have no other vocabulary for what your presence does to them. But let's make it clear, you are not intimidating. The truth is, they are frightened by exposure, terrified of a mirror that does not flinch, unsettled by someone who will not shrink for their comfort. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline. 2 Timothy 1-7. Does their fear really come from you, or from the way their fragile masks crack whenever they stand too close? They have grown accustomed to a world where people fake humility, dilute their fire, and play small so others feel big. But you do not dilute. You do not shrink. You arrive whole floors. Scars, wisdom, silence, and fire. And in a world addicted to performance, the rawness of your presence feels like a storm ripping down false stages. Why do they shake when you simply breathe with certainty? Because certainty has become a foreign language to the insecure. The wicked flee though no one pursues, but the righteous are as bold as a lion. Proverbs 28:1. Imagine this, a stage filled with actors, each clinging desperately to their costumes and memorized lines. Then you walk in, no costume, no script, only truth. Who looks out of place? Them, not you. Your authenticity exposes the hollowness of their performance. And isn't that why they panic? Their fear is not of you, it is of what you reveal. Their entire identity collapses in real time because your existence unmasks the illusion they've been selling to themselves. Nature confirms this reality. Take the wolf quiet, watchful, walking with certainty. Sheep often mistake the wolf's silence for intimidation, when in fact it is assurance, discipline, and strength. In the same way, they call you intimidating because they have never encountered a soul who does not beg for their approval. You are not the threat. Their shaky foundations are the true danger. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? Psalm 27:1. Here is the piercing question. Why do they label what they cannot control as dangerous? Because control has always been their crutch. They built their sense of self on applause, on external validation, on fitting into the expectations of others. But you built yours on alignment with truth. You don't need applause to breathe. You don't need permission to exist. And when someone who relies on the crowd stands next to someone who doesn't, their entire foundation feels like sand beneath their feet. History teaches this lesson too. Consider Joseph McCarthy, the American senator who thrived on fear and manipulation during the Red Scare. For a time, he controlled entire rooms with accusations. But the moment a voice of certainty challenged him with, "Have you no sense of decency?" his empire of intimidation collapsed overnight. McCarthy wasn't defeated by noise, he was defeated by truth. That same collapse awaits anyone who dares label your certainty as intimidation. But let's turn inward for a moment. Why do you sometimes feel misunderstood in your silence? Is it because you are quiet, or because you carry a weight most cannot name? In psychological terms, this is projection. They project their insecurity onto you, calling you intimidating to mask their own fear of inadequacy. Yet your silence is not absence. It is pressure, a presence that forces pretenders to confront their lack. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1-5. I think of Mateo, a bus driver from Madrid, who once said, "People tell me I scare them when I don't talk. But I'm not scary, I'm steady. My silence is me listening to what they cannot say." His words echo your truth. You are not frightening. You are steady, grounded, unshaken. What unsettles them is not your presence, but their own inability to stand firm in yours. Your clarity cannot be manipulated. Your movements cannot be scripted. Your voice cannot be controlled. And what they cannot control, they brand as intimidating. But the deeper truth is this: you are not unpredictable, you are simply untouchable. Their fear comes not from confusion, but from confrontation. And confrontation with truth always feels like danger to those who have built their lives on lies. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. John 8:32. So rise. Chosen one. Let them call you intimidating if they must. Their labels are confessions, not definitions. You are not the problem. You are the evidence that authenticity is still alive, that illusions cannot survive in your presence, and that truth does not bow to fragile egos. Your certainty is the one thing they cannot fake, copy, or defeat. And that is why they better be careful. Because being near you is not entertainment, it is exposure, confrontation, and privilege. And mishandling privilege always carries a cost. Chosen one. You are not walking this earth by accident. You carry the blueprint their bloodline could never touch. Generations tried to unlock what you embody, but every attempt ended in silence and defeat. Yet you stand here as the living evidence of what their lineage only dreamed of. This truth is not small. It is ancient, transcendent, something that began long before you and will not end with you. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. Jeremiah 1-5. Does this not explain why people stop and stare? Why they sense something they cannot name when you pass by? Deep down they feel the vibration of history shifting, as if they are witnessing a prophecy walking in flesh. Your aura holds codes, frequencies older than civilizations, resonating like hidden equations in physics that only activate in the right vessel. Your ancestors stretched their hands toward it but never cracked it. You are the living key, the walking solution to doors they could not open, battles they could not win, chains they could not break. What else could explain why your silence feels heavier than someone else's shouting? Why do your very words feel like centuries condensed into sentences? Because you do not just speak knowledge, you embody revelation forged in fire. For the Spirit searches all things, even the deep things of God. 1 Corinthians 2:10. And those who hear you sense not only a voice, but an echo of eternity reverberating inside their souls. Picture this: a vault sealed shut for centuries, guarded by layers of stone, weight, and time. Many tried to force it open, but the lock refused every hand. Then you arrive not with brute strength, not with borrowed tools, but with the key already pulsing in your blood. That is your energy. It wasn't something you memorized in books or borrowed from others. It was written into your DNA on a soul level, then sharpened through pain, isolation, and relentless growth. Isn't this why storms didn't destroy you but refined you? Isn't this why isolation never crushed you but revealed you? I will give you the treasures of darkness and riches stored in secret places. Isaiah 45:3. The very seasons that were meant to bury you instead became laboratories where your divine design was activated. Science calls this resonance. Architecture calls it foundation. Psychology calls it unconscious inheritance. But heaven calls it covenant. You are the bridge where bloodlines ended and destiny began. And this is why people act strangely around you. On one hand, they are in awe, unable to deny what you carry. On the other, they project fear, jealousy, and insecurity. Why? Because your existence is a mirror whispering, "This is what you could have been if you had done the work." That truth cuts deeper than a sword, exposing what they chose to ignore. For the Word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. Hebrews 4:12. To stand near you is to be weighed without words, measured without scales, and judged without a courtroom. I recall a simple story from Emilia, a gardener in southern Italy. She said, "My grandmother planted roses, but they never bloomed. I planted the same roses in the same soil, but after years of care and pruning, they blossomed in colors no one in my family had seen." Her words reflect your reality. You are not repeating the cycles of those before you. You are blooming where generations only planted seeds. What they thought was a barren inheritance became a fertile garden in your hands. And does this not reveal that destiny is less about what you are given, and more about what awakens through you when heaven decides it is time? But here is the piercing question: why do your words shake people's souls long after you've gone silent? Why does your presence linger like an echo they cannot escape? Because you are not merely talking, you are breaking generational curses in conversations that last minutes but carry centuries inside them. You are closing cycles of fear, poverty, silence, and compromise with the weight of your very breath. Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. Galatians 3:13. You walk into a room and suddenly chains they thought were permanent begin to rattle, because your spirit carries the frequency of freedom. Meanwhile, the world is full of those who tried to bypass the blueprint. Consider Pharaoh of Egypt, who believed his dynasty untouchable, but was shattered when Moses, carrying divine instruction, broke generations of oppression with one word from God. Pharaoh's bloodline carried power but no covenant, and when the covenant appeared, his empire crumbled. This is what happens when counterfeit power confronts a true blueprint. And is that not why some glare at you with envy? They sense that no amount of effort or inheritance can substitute for what heaven designed into your spirit. Their downfall begins the moment they attempt to fight what they can never replicate. So understand this: your presence is not just rare. It is inherited, power, perfected. Do not mistake their envy for strength. They are not threatened because you are better. They are threatened because you carry what their bloodline never could. To them, you are not just a person. You are a reminder, a reflection, the evidence that destiny does not recycle weakness. It evolves into strength. And every step you take is living proof that heaven's architecture has moved beyond them and chosen you as the cornerstone. Chosen one, rise in this truth. Do not shrink for their comfort. Do not apologize for carrying codes they could never touch. You are the blueprint, the unlocked code, the living evidence that destiny does not repeat, it transcends. And that is why they must be careful. Because standing near you is not casual. It is standing before everything they could not become and everything they could have been. And once exposed, they will never forget it. The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone. Psalm 118:22. Let your life remain that cornerstone, immovable, unshakable, and untouchable. Chosen one. Mishandling you is never cheap. It always comes with a cost. A bill so high they can't afford it. They assumed losing you was the punishment, when in truth, losing you was only the warning. You were not sent into their lives as background or coincidence. You were sent as an assignment, a divine appointment stitched into the architecture of their destiny. For many are called, but few are chosen. Matthew 22:14. Do you realize the gravity of that? Every person who crosses your path steps into a spiritual weight, whether they acknowledge it or not. Being in your presence activates something unseen, like a switch flipping in the spirit. You are not just kind, not just wise, you are the assignment itself. And how they handle that assignment determines more than their future with you. It reshapes the trajectory of their entire life. Haven't you noticed the pattern? The ones who treated you with honor, who supported without agenda, who guarded your name instead of exploiting it. Peace followed them. Doors opened, clarity unfolded. And then there are the others, the liars, the manipulators, the mockers. Where are they now? Their confidence cracked, their plans unraveled, their opportunities closed like gates rusting shut. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Galatians 6-7. Was it you who cursed them? No. It was the law of heaven correcting imbalance. Imagine this. Someone entrusted with the keys to a rare and priceless car. They could drive carefully and be carried further than they ever dreamed. But instead, they slam it into a wall. Who do they blame, the car or their recklessness? That is the story of those who mishandle you. The wreckage in their life is not coincidence. It is consequence. And isn't it striking how they whisper that you changed or that you walked away, when in reality it was their hands steering into destruction? Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. Proverbs 26:27. Your presence is never neutral ground. It is medicine or poison depending on how it is handled. For some, you are healing, alignment, and breakthrough. For others, you are exposure, confrontation, and judgment. That is why some turn hostile, not because you wronged them, but because your very discernment tore through their disguises. Why do they suddenly withdraw when you've done nothing but remain true? Because they realize they can't fake their way past you. And when they tried to disrespect you, they didn't just collide with you, they collided with the covering, protecting you. Touch not mine anointed, and do my prophets no harm. Psalm 105:15. The Italian poet Dante, in his Divine Comedy, described those in hell as souls who had wasted grace, misused what was freely given, and now faced consequences that could not be reversed. This mirrors your story. Mishandling you was mishandling grace they never deserved. They thought they were dealing with a person, they were dealing with an assignment. Do you see why their hostility grows? Why they spiral into self-destruction? Because proximity to you always carries a demand: rise to alignment or collapse under the weight of exposure. I think of Elena, a school teacher from Buenos Aires, who once said, "I used to beg people to value me, until I realized that losing me was not their punishment, it was their warning." Her voice echoes your reality. You are the threshold moment in people's lives. Some cross it into blessing, others stumble into judgment, but none leave unchanged. So, the question remains, why do people's lives seem to unravel after betraying you? Because mishandling you is mishandling the blessing God sent to elevate them. It is not petty karma, it is spiritual law. Whatever is hidden is meant to be disclosed, and whatever is concealed is meant to be brought out into the open. Mark 4:22. You were sent to awaken, to elevate, to expose. And when they chose betrayal over honor, they weren't simply rejecting you, they were triggering consequences written into the very fabric of divine order. Chosen one, understand this truth. Being near you is never meaningless. It is always one of two things, a blessing or a lesson. And those who mishandled you now walk through lessons they cannot escape. Their regret is not because of who you are, but because of what they lost in failing to recognize you. So Reese, do not chase closure. Do not dilute your worth. Do not apologize for the fallout they created. You are the assignment, the rarest gift, the test they underestimated. And mishandling, you will always carry a price they cannot pay. Chosen one, let us set the record straight. You were never chasing the spotlight, because you are the fire itself. They look at you and assume your glow exists for applause. But the truth is deeper, heavier, undeniable. You radiate because nothing, no storm, no betrayal, no weapon forged against you could extinguish your flame. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. Isaiah 54:17. Does this not explain why their voices tremble when you enter? Why their eyes linger as if they've just seen something eternal wrapped in flesh? They call it hype. But it is not hype. It is survival turned into harmony. And harmony is never a performance. It is the residue of a life refined in secret. A power born from nights no one saw and tears no one counted. Your light was not manufactured, not stitched together from trends, filters, or staged motivation. It was not borrowed, bought, or stolen from someone else's influence. It was forged in the caves where most people would have collapsed. You shine because you survived what should have buried you. And instead of turning bitter, you turned aligned. And isn't that the greatest mystery, that the wounds which should have broken you became the very windows through which your light now shines? The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. John 1-5. Every scar became a lantern, every disappointment a spark, every lonely night a training ground for eternal radiance. Imagine coal under pressure, black, ordinary, disregarded, yet over time, underweight. It transforms into a diamond. Dust under the same pressure vanishes into nothing. Which one are you? You endured storms that stripped you bare. Friends abandoned you. Support disappeared. Your name was dragged through mud. You fought battles in silence, without applause, without audience. Yet still you rose. Why does your presence unsettle rooms even before you speak? Because you embody the proof that alignment cannot be faked. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair. 2 Corinthians 4-8. This is why your energy feels ancient. Why your glow unsettles those who built their image on illusions. They sense you have walked through fires they would never survive. And harmony cannot be staged. Your presence is not performance, it is proof. You don't shine for attention. You radiate because you are aligned with something higher. And that is why people obsess over you. Some admire it. Some imitate it. None can replicate it. Why? Because what you carry is not downloadable, not repeatable, not transferable. It is carved into your spirit by fire. Have you noticed how some grow irritated simply at your peace, why others glare with envy, though you are not even competing, because your alignment is magnetic? It does not shout. It does not beg. It simply is. You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. Your very stillness becomes a sermon, your calm becomes a mirror, your peace becomes a revolution without words. The 19th century painter Vincent van Gogh once said, "I would rather die of passion than of boredom." His words echo your reality. You didn't glow to be noticed. You glowed because passion and pain fused into an unquenchable fire. That fire is why some cannot look at you without trembling. They see in you the reflection of what they could have been if they had endured instead of quitting. And here lies the unspoken truth. Your presence doesn't only reveal who you are, it also unmasks who they chose not to become. That revelation terrifies them, because your resilience has painted the portrait of their excuses. And in the great choral masterpiece, Lux Aeterna, the voices rise with the words, "Eternal light. Shine upon them." That eternal light is what you carry, not for applause, but for revelation. Your glow reveals, exposes, and transforms. That is why some worship your presence and others resent it, because light always forces darkness to retreat. For once you were darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light. Ephesians 5-8. You are not an accessory to the room, you are the atmosphere itself. You are not a lamp switched on and off, you are the sunrise no hand can control. So let them scramble for likes, for followers, for applause. Let them exhaust themselves chasing shadows while you remain rooted in the source. They will never find the switch you flipped in the midnight hours, the fire you kept alive in the caves of silence. Why does your stillness burn them more than their noise ever could? Because their foundations are paper, and you are flame. Their efforts are echoes, while you are the origin. Their race is performance, while you are permanence. Chosen one. Your light is not decoration, it is revelation. You are the fire that cannot be put out, the lamp set on the hill, the evidence that survival can be transformed into brilliance. So rise. Do not apologize for your radiance. Do not shrink for their comfort. Do not dim to soothe fragile eyes. Shine as you were designed to shine. And remember this, they must be careful with you, because your glow is not vanity, it is prophecy. It is heaven's announcement that light will always win, that truth will always endure, and that darkness will never write the final chapter. Chosen one. Your boundaries were never meant to be mistaken as stubborn walls. They are sacred verdicts carved into your spirit. Silent yet thunderous warnings that echo louder than words. They thought your silence was arrogance or distance, when in truth it was judgment. A spiritual gavel striking down with clarity. Let your yes be yes, and your no, no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. Matthew 5:37. Have you noticed how your silence unsettles those who hoped you would bend? Why does your quiet withdrawal feel more crushing than their loud accusations? Because when you step back, heaven itself confirms your decision. You no longer pull back to prove a point or play childish games. You withdraw because something within you registers imbalance energies off-key. An intention polluted, presence treated as disposable. You sense, as a musician hears dissonance in an orchestra, when someone's spirit is clashing with your divine harmony. And when that dissonance becomes unbearable, you don't argue, you don't justify, you move quietly, powerfully, permanently. Do not give dogs what is holy. Do not throw your pearls before swine, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Matthew 7:6. Your boundaries, then, are not about cruelty, but about sacred stewardship. They are not rejection. They are protection, and sometimes they are correction. People forget that being close to you is not a casual arrangement. It is a responsibility. You carry weight, clarity, alignment. To mishandle that through lies, manipulation, or neglect is to invite consequences that echo far beyond the moment. Why does your absence feel so different from anyone else's? Why do rooms suddenly lose color when you leave? Because you are not simply stepping away emotionally, you are withdrawing spiritually. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Your stillness speaks more loudly than arguments, and your departure often delivers the final blow that words could never land. When you walk away, something leaves with you, the peace that once absorbed their chaos, the covering that shielded them from storms, the clarity that made them feel steady, and when it is gone, their own noise becomes unbearable. Their own storms feel heavier. Imagine a safety net abused again and again until one day it is removed. The next fall is harder, sharper, unforgettable. That is what your boundaries create. Not punishment, but reflection. Your absence is a mirror, forcing them to face themselves without your grace softening the blow. For everything there is a season. and a time for every matter under heaven. Ecclesiastes 3:1. There comes a time when wasted grace is withdrawn, and in that silence, truth speaks. I remember a man named Gabriel, a bus driver in Manila, who once said, "I stopped apologizing for the distance I created, because the distance was the only way to stop people from draining me dry." His story mirrors yours. Boundaries are not cruelty. They are clarity. They protect the rare flame within you from those who would smother it for their convenience. And isn't it striking that those who once mocked your silence later confess it was the loudest message they ever received? They assumed they had unlimited access, that they could come and go as they pleased, taking your energy like water from a faucet, never imagining it would run dry. But when you closed the door, it was not pride, it was purpose. Your spirit knew enough was enough. And once that line was crossed, your absence became a sermon louder than confrontation. Do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so? Amos 3:3. Agreement broken is destiny redirected, and you never apologize for that redirection. Architecture teaches us that boundaries are not obstructions, but load-bearing structures, the very lines that allow a building to stand without collapse. Physics calls it resonance, the limits where vibrations can stabilize rather than destroy. Your boundaries function the same way: divine filters, sacred frameworks, holy blueprints. Those who honor them are strengthened, aligned, and lifted higher. Those who violate them are exposed for who they truly are, stripped of the covering they once took for granted. So understand this: your boundaries are more than personal, they are prophetic. They don't just protect you, they reveal others. They separate wheat from chaff, loyalty from pretense, truth from illusion. The ones who respect them grow stronger through them. The ones who mock them collapse beneath their own recklessness. And isn't that why they must tread carefully? Because mishandling you is mishandling the very filter God set to measure them. Chosen one, never doubt this truth. You are not cruel, you are clear. You are not stubborn, you are sacred. And your silence will continue to be the loudest thunder in their memory. Rise now in confidence. Protect what is holy within you. Stand firm in your verdicts. And remember this: your boundaries are not walls, they are warnings. Warnings that, when ignored, always come with consequences no one can afford. Chosen one, your presence is not casual, it is confrontation wrapped in light. They do not hate you, they hate what comes out of them the moment you arrive. When you step into a room, the atmosphere doesn't just shift, it convicts. The light has come into the world. But people loved darkness instead of light because their deeds were evil. John 3:19. Why do their smiles falter? Why do their eyes dart nervously? Because something in you calls forth what they thought was buried forever. Old shame, hidden jealousy, unresolved wounds, they all claw their way back to the surface in your presence. You don't have to speak. You don't have to move a finger. You are the alarm clock their soul cannot silence. For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. And isn't it telling that while you remain calm, others grow restless, defensive, or outright hostile the moment your light exposes the cracks in their masks? Picture a dusty attic where forgotten junk has been shoved for years. Cobwebs, broken frames, piles of ignored clutter. Suddenly, a window is opened and sunlight pours in. Dust dances, shadows scatter, and the mess becomes undeniable. That's you. You are that sunlight. Your presence doesn't allow shadows to stay comfortable. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. Isaiah 9:2. And when people see their reflection in your light, they don't call it revelation, they call it intimidation. Because labeling you as too much, too intense, or too difficult is easier than admitting the truth staring back at them. In psychology, this is called projection. They project what they cannot face within themselves onto you. And here lies the deeper question. Why is it easier for them to blame you than to confront themselves? Because rewriting a narrative feels safer than rewriting their soul. And yet, does your silence not scream louder than their accusations? You don't stir chaos, you simply reveal it. Like a mirror with no distortion. Your energy forces them to face the lies they've built entire lives upon. I am reminded of Martin Luther, the German reformer, who once said, "Peace, if possible, truth at all costs." His presence forced the corruption of his time into the open, exposing what others preferred to keep hidden. In the same way, your life exposes systems of illusion people desperately cling to. This is why some will open up vulnerably in your presence, while others shut down or flee. You activate people without trying, because your presence is a mirror that cannot be ignored. And in Mozart's Requiem, the haunting Confutatis Maledictis describes the condemned shrinking away from the flame of truth. That imagery mirrors what happens when you arrive. Those unwilling to confront their reflection feel the heat of exposure and call you the villain. They twist the story, ghost you, or smear your name because tearing you down feels easier than tearing down their false self. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Isaiah 5:20. Their reaction was never about you. It was always about what your light revealed in them. So, choose one. Do not take their fear personally. It was never you they were terrified of. It was the truth you dragged out of hiding. The truth will set you free. John 8:32. And that is why they better be careful. Because your presence does not merely enter a space, it unmasks it. You are the sunlight in the attic, the alarm that cannot be silenced, the flame that refuses to be quenched. Rise in that truth. Shine without apology. And never forget, your very being is the exposure that dismantles every illusion. Chosen one. People do not simply envy you, they hunger for what you carry, not realizing the cost engraved into your soul. They admire your glow, the calm in your voice, the authority in your silence, the unshakable peace that follows you like a shield. The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Philippians 4:7. But here is the piercing question. Do they truly want your life? Or do they just want your shine? Because the truth is this, nothing about you came free. Every radiant part of you was hammered, crushed, and refined in fire until you became the living evidence of resilience. They see the fruit on your tree but never endured the storm that nearly uprooted it. They see the polished diamond but never endured the weight that pressed it into form. Isn't it remarkable how people desire the finished product while rejecting the process? Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life. James 1:12. They want your strength but not your sleepless nights. They want your discernment but not the betrayals that sharpened it like steel. They want your compassion but not the wounds of being dismissed, overlooked, and doubted until you nearly drowned in despair. Nature itself testifies to this truth. A towering cedar tree commands reverence. But how many survived the lightning strikes, the winters of frost, and the storms that snapped weaker branches? A pearl glimmers in light. Yet it began as irritation, a wound inside an oyster that over time transformed into beauty. Aren't you the same? What others call elegance was born of endurance. What they admire as grace was once agony carried in silence. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. 2 Corinthians 4:17. And still, they crave your crown but despise your cross. They want your wisdom without your wounds, your victories without your valleys, your mastery without your misery. Yet you know this truth. Crowns are always forged in crosses. Did not Jesus himself bear the weight of betrayal, isolation, and crucifixion before the resurrection? If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. Luke 9:23. Your life mirrors this divine paradox. Glory only arrives after grinding. History repeats this lesson. Take Marie Antoinette, once envied for her crown, her luxury, her influence. People admired her splendor but ignored the decay underneath the disconnection, the recklessness, the illusions. When pressure came, her crown could not protect her. Her end was tragic. Proof that wanting the crown without wisdom leads to ruin. Isn't that the opposite of you? Your glow is not vanity, it is victory, carved out of valleys most would not survive. And there are ordinary testimonies too. I once met Clara, a seamstress in Seville, who said, "People ask me why my hands move so gracefully across fabric, but they do not see the nights I stitched by candlelight with tears in my eyes to feed my children." Her words reflect your reality. Mastery is never given. It is earned through persistence that others cannot imagine. So, here is the truth they choke on, but never say aloud. They don't want to walk your path. They want the shortcuts, the results without the refining, the shine without the suffering. But you, chosen one, were built in fire. You were forged in isolation. You were tested by storms that left no applause and no comfort. And still you rose, again and again, until scars became strength and brokenness became brilliance. Though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. Job 13:15. So, when envy circles you, remind yourself they are only gazing at the highlight reel, not the hidden nights, not the countless rebuilds, not the moments you bled for wisdom. Your glow is not magic, it is mastery. And mastery always demands a cost. That is why they better tread carefully. Because while they fantasize about copying your shine, they remain blind to the cross that made it. You did not just arrive here, you were reborn. Every step of that rebirth lives in your presence, reminding them that envy without endurance is worthless. Chosen one, rise. Wear your scars as jewels, your struggles as scepters, your fire as your fortress. Never apologize for the crown you carry, for it was birthed through a cross they could never endure. Let them crave it. Let them covet it, but let them learn this truth. Crowns without crosses collapse, but crosses carried with faith always birth unshakable crowns. Chosen one, some people cry for years, begging heaven for what their hearts cannot manufacture. They plead for loyalty in a world full of betrayal, for truth in a landscape of illusions, for peace in the middle of storms that keep tearing them apart. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. Matthew 7:7. Yet when that answer arrived, clothed in flesh and bone, steady, sacred, and intentional, they were not ready. Isn't it strange how the very thing they prayed for becomes the very thing they mishandle? You were the embodiment of what their soul was starving for. Not loud, not wrapped in artificial perfection, not draped in empty applause, but carrying the steady cadence of authenticity. Like Noah building an ark before the flood, you carried provision before the storm hit. By faith Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear built an ark to save his family. Hebrews 11:7. Yet just like the scoffers of Noah's day, they mocked, doubted, and resisted what was sent to save them. Does it not make you wonder how many prayers go unanswered simply because people sabotage the answer once it arrives? The truth is piercing. They didn't want sacred. They wanted convenience. They didn't want responsibility. They wanted relief. They said they longed for depth, but their appetite was for distraction. When you entered their world carrying the very thing they swore they were ready for, their ego crumbled beneath the weight of reality. The heart is deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Jeremiah 17:9. Your presence exposed their gaps. Their prayers spoke one thing, but their spirits lived another. Isn't this the tragedy of human nature? To sabotage the miracle because it didn't come in the wrapping paper of ego's desire. Imagine this in the language of science. Someone pleads for light in darkness. Yet when photons break the void, they shield their eyes and curse the brightness. Or picture architecture, a cathedral designed with arches that bear impossible weight. But the careless builder removes a keystone and wonders why the whole structure collapses. That is how they treated you. They asked for rain in drought, but when the sky opened, they cursed the storm instead of collecting the water. I will send you rain in its season, and the ground will yield its crops and the trees their fruit. Leviticus 26:4. You were the rain. They preferred the dust. And there are always reminders in everyday lives. Take Raphael, a baker in Porto, who once confessed, "People line up for my bread every morning, but they never see the 2 a.m. kneading, the burns on my hands, the nights I went hungry to keep the oven lit." His words echo your journey. People want the blessing, but they refuse the burden it takes to sustain it. They wanted the taste of your bread, but not the labor of your oven. Doesn't that sting that they prayed for you, but recoiled when you arrived? Your assignment was never to be worshipped. It was to elevate. And elevation demands responsibility. Just as Moses lifted his staff and parted the Red Sea, creating a path that required faith to cross, you created opportunities that required courage to embrace. Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and all that night the Lord drove the sea back, and the Israelites went through the sea on dry ground. Exodus 14:21-2. But instead of walking in faith, they trembled in fear. Instead of rising with you, they clung to dysfunction. Instead of honoring you, they sabotaged the very connection meant to heal them. And so the consequences were not just emotional, they were spiritual. When you left, the covering lifted, peace departed, clarity evaporated. Their own chaos echoed louder because you were no longer there to absorb it. It was like a frequency shift in physics. Remove the resonant tone, and the entire system falls into dissonance. Isn't that exactly what happened when your absence became their teacher? They thought they had time. They thought they could wander, leave, and return at will. But once the door closed, it locked. The bridegroom came, and the virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Matthew 25:10. What greater tragedy than asking for an answered prayer only to mishandle it until it vanishes? That is the silence. They now sit with the sound of heaven's answer withdrawn because they proved unworthy to hold it. So let this stand as a warning. Losing you wasn't just loss. It was their answered prayer turning into silence. And chosen one, never mistake that silence as your failure. It is their verdict. You are not replaceable because you were assigned, and no counterfeit can fill the void left behind. Rise now, wear your clarity like armor, walk with your sacred weight, and let the world learn this. Prayers mishandled become punishments, but blessings honored become legacies. Chosen one. What weight can the laughter of doubters truly carry when heaven has already declared your identity? If God is for us, who can be against us? Romans 8:31. They dismissed you, mocked your silence, and tried to bury your confidence beneath their opinions. Yet life itself rose again and again as your witness. Every opened door, every breakthrough on time, every protection that came at the exact second it was needed, all of it was heaven's stamp declaring you unshakable. Do you realize how dangerous you are to a world addicted to validation? When you have reached the place where validation no longer registers, you no longer beg to be seen, nor waste your voice trying to be understood. You do not dance for applause because applause has no authority over your mission. Your confirmation comes not from claps, but from divine synchronicities that human logic cannot untangle. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. Psalm 37:23. How many times did you sense a shift deep in your spirit? And within days, the very thing unfolded before your eyes. How many times did you escape disaster you never even knew was lurking? Isn't it clear that this was not coincidence but alignment? The unseen blueprint guiding your steps. Picture a courtroom where the crowd mocks and jeers, throwing insults like arrows. Yet when the gavel strikes, the judge rules in your favor. Who matters more, the roar of the crowd or the authority of the verdict? That is your life. Their opinions are noise, but the verdict is divine alignment itself. And alignment has carried you where approval never could. For promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. But God is the judge. He putteth down one, and setteth up another. Psalm 75:6-7. Isn't it striking that while others chase being liked, you were elevated without asking? And this truth is visible in history and in everyday lives. The Italian conductor Arturo Toscanini once said, "God tells me how the music should sound, but you stand in the way." His obsession with truth in sound mirrors your obsession with truth in spirit. Others seek claps from the audience, but you seek resonance with eternity. Does that not explain why your presence carries a weight others cannot imitate? You are frequency, not noise. Your soul vibrates at a pitch that counterfeit hearts cannot sustain. Meanwhile, those who doubted you, who whispered behind your back, who mocked your silence, have been forced into the most humiliating posture, watching life itself co-sign you. Like Pharaoh in Exodus, who hardened his heart until the Red Sea itself testified against him, your doubters are swallowed by the very tides they thought would drown you. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. Haven't you noticed how silence itself becomes your greatest weapon? as heaven does the proving while you remain still. And yet your journey has not been easy. They see results, but cannot stomach the process. They call it luck. But they never saw the nights you wept in silence, wrestling with yourself until dawn. They call it easy. But they never endured betrayals that fractured your soul, or the solitude that became your crucible. Like Jacob wrestling with the angel, you came out limping but renamed, no longer bound to the past. Your name will no longer be Jacob, but Israel, because you have struggled with God and with humans and have overcome. Genesis 32-28. Is it not powerful that what once broke you became the very proof that you were chosen? And sometimes the reminder comes through ordinary people. Sophia, a nurse in Buenos Aires, once whispered after a long night shift, "I don't work for applause. I work because when a patient breathes easier, heaven claps for me." Her quiet testimony reflects your own truth. You were not built for human approval. You were sent for divine assignment. And in that assignment, your victories come not from being seen, but from being sent. Your journey can also be understood through art. In Handel's Messiah, the chorus thunders, and "He shall reign forever and ever, King of kings and Lord of lords." This crescendo was not written to please human ears, but to echo eternity's decree. In the same way, your life has become a living symphony that no critic can silence. The crescendos of your victories were not staged for performance. They were carved out of pain, faith, and relentless obedience. Isn't it true that you are more like a cathedral under construction than a theater show stone by stone, sacred by sacred, enduring storms but rising still? So let them doubt, let them mock, let them gather in corners to rewrite your story. Their green lights mean nothing when you already carry one that never fails. For the gifts and the calling of God are irrevocable, Romans 11:29. And that is why they better be careful, because no denial, no rumor, no conspiracy can overturn a verdict already stamped by heaven. Rise, chosen one. Walk in your clarity. Live in your alignment. And remember, their approval is useless, but your assignment is eternal. Chosen one. What happens when fragile hands strike against a wall built by heaven itself? No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. Isaiah 54-17. This is not poetry, it is the reality of your existence. They plot, they whisper, they conspire in secret corners. Yet the very breath of their schemes dies before it can reach your name. Why? Because you are not standing exposed. You are surrounded, shielded, and backed by realms their mortal sight cannot comprehend. Every hand raised against you collapses, not because you fight dirty or beg for pity, but because you walk under covering. You are wrapped in a shield more ancient than the earth itself. You are not only chosen, you are protected. And that protection terrifies them because it is invisible yet undeniable. For he shall give his angels charge over you, to keep you in all your ways. Psalm 91-11. Have you noticed how every slander outlived itself? How every false accusation eventually decayed while the truth remained standing like a mountain unmoved by storms? Isn't it clear by now that their weapons only testify to your armor? Nature itself offers a mirror. Imagine the eagle soaring high in the storm while smaller birds scatter in panic. Lightning cracks across the sky. Yet the eagle rides the very winds meant to destroy. That is you. Your enemies wield paper umbrellas against hurricanes, not realizing that the storm itself has been assigned to lift you higher. Their rage becomes your wind. Their gossip becomes your altitude. Does this not explain why the more they tried to bury you, the more your name rose beyond their reach, and history has already given its warnings? Consider Antiochus IV Epiphanes, the arrogant king who desecrated the temple in Jerusalem, believing he could crush the covenant people. His schemes ended not in triumph, but in humiliation, his empire dissolving under divine judgment. This is the pattern of all who rise against the chosen. Their ambition turns into their undoing. The Lord frustrates the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot carry out their plans. Job 5:12. Do you see how their attempts to wound you only carve their own destruction? Your silence is not weakness, it is awareness. You already know how the story ends. You've watched as betrayal collapsed, as envy withered, as schemes backfired. A nurse named Daniel in Nairobi once said, "When people curse me, I just keep serving, because I know life has a ledger no one escapes." His simple truth echoes yours. Harm against you is never harmless. Every word, every action against you is recorded in realms unseen, weighed like gold on heavenly scales. And when the weight returns, it crushes those who sowed it, and art whispers the same prophecy. In Verdi's Requiem, the Desiree thunders, day of wrath. That day will dissolve the world in ashes. That music was written centuries ago, yet it echoes your reality now. To touch you wrongly is to call wrath upon oneself. To oppose you is to summon fire they cannot extinguish. Isn't it haunting that your very presence forces others to face the consequences of their choices? So understand this: betrayal never works against you. Envy cannot halt your rise. You are not assembled by this world, and so the world cannot dismantle you. You were assigned, and your assignment is untouchable. To mishandle you is to mishandle sacred ground. Remember how Moses at the burning bush was told, "Do not come any closer, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." Exodus 3-5. That is the same covering on you. To strike you is to strike against the fire of God itself. And the dangerous part is, they don't even realize it until the fallout swallows them whole. So you don't defend yourself like others because you don't have to. Heaven has already ruled in your favor. The battle is not yours, but God's. 2 Chronicles 20:15. And that is why, chosen one, they better be careful, because coming against you is not just reckless. It is self-destruction. Their war against you is suicide for their own destiny. So rise with boldness. Stand tall in your covering. Walk knowing that storms cannot crush you, lies cannot bind you, and betrayal cannot erase you. You are not only chosen, you are untouchable. Chosen ones. By now it should be clear, your presence is not casual, and it is not ordinary. It is a force, a current that changes the atmosphere the moment you enter. Some will never admit it, but they feel it deep in their chest, like a weight pressing against their false confidence. Others will quietly honor it, adjusting their tone, their words, their posture in your presence. That is not coincidence. That is evidence of who you are. Your presence is not simply a personality trait, it is spiritual evidence. It convicts lies. It exposes hidden motives, and it forces masks to crack. The world may label it as intimidation or being too much, but in reality, it is alignment with truth, and truth always shakes what is false. As the scriptures declare, You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. Matthew 5:14. Your very existence refuses to be hidden, because light was never meant to blend with darkness. But here is what you must hold on to. This power, this presence, is not for arrogance. It is for purpose. You were not chosen so people could simply fear you, but so that heaven could work through you. Every time your silence unsettles the proud, every time your peace disturbs the insecure, it is God reminding the world that real authority does not shout, it simply is. Remember how Jesus himself stood before Pilate. He did not beg. He did not scream. His presence alone left rulers trembling, because authentic power never needs to prove itself. So the warning is this: they better be careful with you. Mishandling you is not a small mistake. It is a spiritual miscalculation. Doors close, opportunities fall apart, and peace evaporates when people treat you as disposable. Why? Because honoring you is not just about you, it is about respecting the assignment God placed over your life. You carry weight, you carry covering, and to mistreat you is to reject what heaven sent. Chosen ones, hold this truth boldly. You do not have to chase validation. You do not have to shrink. And you do not have to explain your presence. You are already stamped by God, and that is enough. Let them whisper. Let them plot. Let them project their insecurities onto you. None of it can change the fact that your presence is a privilege, not an entitlement. And now, as we close this message, I want to speak directly to you watching. If this word stirred something inside you, I invite you to be part of this mission. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe so you never miss what heaven is speaking through this channel. And if you feel led to go further, your support through super thanks is deeply appreciated. But whether you give or not, your presence here means more than words can say. Thank you for walking with us, for lending your ear, your heart, and your time. May your path be covered. May your enemies stumble before they ever reach you. And may your light only grow brighter. In the name of Jesus, I bless you. Go forward with courage, because your presence is not ordinary. It is divine.